I never thought I'd be sitting here spilling all this on some anonymous subreddit, but honestly, I need to get it out of my system. I always believed I knew my wife, trusted her in ways I thought were solid. We've been together for over 10 years. Quiet life, stable job, good friends. Nothing flashy, but I thought we had something real. That was until a few nights ago when I found her phone. I wasn't snooping. She left it on the kitchen table and I saw a message pop up. A text from her boss. Nothing dirty or overt at first glance. Just looking forward to seeing you tonight with a smiley face. I froze. My stomach sank. I didn't even need to read more. Something told me that wasn't innocent. The next morning, I couldn't sleep. I kept turning it over in my head. Who the hell sends a message like that? Then I remembered her acting strange lately, distant, distracted, avoiding my eyes. She'd been lying about small stuff too, about where she was, who she was with. But that message. It was the smoking gun I needed. It wasn't just a harmless flirt. It had been going on. For a while I could feel it, and I was furious, livid. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut, but I knew I couldn't blow up then and there. I needed a plan. I waited until she left for work. When I was alone, I sat down in front of her laptop. Her email, her social media, whatever I could find. That's when I saw the receipts. A string of messages, late-night texts, promises, and plans. They all pointed to the same thing, an affair. But what cut deeper was the evidence I found in her emails, the photos she thought I'd never see. There were pictures taken at some fancy restaurant, her with her hand on his knee, her head resting on his shoulder. The caption read, "Can't believe I'm finally with someone who gets me." That's when my stomach dropped even more. She'd been cheating for months, maybe longer. I kept calm that day, but inside I was boiling. I didn't want to confront her right away. No, I wanted to think. I needed a plan, something cold, calculated, revengeful, but not reckless. I remembered her saying she wanted to surprise me with good news. That was a lie. She's been lying to me for over a year. All those nights she said she was working late, those dinners she kept posting photos from with her boss. They'd been together. I could feel it in my bones. My mind was racing with what I was going to do, how I was going to end this betrayal. I needed her to see that I knew, that I'd found out everything. I started piecing it all together, how she'd been acting, what she'd been hiding, the evidence I'd uncovered. I felt sick and betrayed, but I also felt a strange clarity. I realized I didn't want her to get away with it. Not that I was the kind of guy who wanted revenge just for the sake of it, but this was different. She lied, cheated, and kept me in the dark. Now it was my turn to take control. I decided I'd let her know I knew everything. I'd give her a chance to confess, but I wasn't expecting an apology. I just wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. That night I cooked my mind some peace, ate a decent dinner, and went to bed early. But sleep didn't come easy. My mind kept replaying the images from her phone, her messages, those pictures. I kept feeling the betrayal like a hot iron in my chest. It was like my world had shifted on its axis, and I was left standing there, suddenly questioning everything. That's how I ended up here, writing this, trying to piece together what comes next. Because I know this isn't just about cheating, it's about my trust, my dignity. And I want her to understand that I won't be taken for a fool. I've got a plan, but I need to decide whether I'll go through with it or fold under the weight of everything. The next day, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My hands were still trembling slightly from the shock of it all, but I knew I couldn't let her see that. Not yet. I had to keep my head clear and figure out what I was really going to do. As I brushed my teeth, I caught myself staring at my reflection in the mirror. My jaw was clenched. I could feel the tension in my shoulders. I wondered how she managed to keep her composure, how she kept lying so easily. The thought made my skin crawl. I decided I'd confront her when she got home from work. I'd give her a chance to come clean, but I knew she wouldn't. Not after what I'd uncovered. I wanted her to feel the pressure, to see that I knew everything. I wasn't just going to storm in and yell. I learned that the hard way. Instead, I'd give her a taste of what I had, drop little hints, let her sweat. By late afternoon, I was pacing the living room. I didn't want to seem too eager or angry, but I also didn't want to appear weak. When her car pulled into the driveway, I felt my palms turn slick. Her footsteps sounded heavy on the porch. She entered, carrying her usual "I'm so tired" look, but I saw it, the flicker of guilt in her eyes. That was enough for me. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual but with underlying heat. "How was your day?" She shrugged, avoiding my gaze. "Fine, nothing special." I crossed my arms. "You know, I saw the messages, the ones from your boss, the pictures too. The ones I found on your email." Her face went pale for a second, then she blinked quickly as if trying to hide something. "You went through my stuff. Don't bother denying it," I snapped. "I saw everything. The late-night dinners, the secret meetings, the photos. How long has this been going on?" She looked down, fiddling with her purse. I could see her trying to find the right words, but nothing came. Instead, she just sat down heavily on the couch, eyes glassy. I felt the satisfaction of catching her, seeing her unravel. Good, she deserved to feel this. "You lied to me," I continued. "All this time I thought we had something real. Turns out I was just a backup, huh?" She finally looked up, tears welling up. "It's not what you think, it's complicated." "Complicated?" I scoffed. "It's always complicated, isn't it? You got caught and now you're trying to spin your way out. Well, I've had enough. I want the truth. Are you pregnant with his baby?" She froze, eyes wide with shock. "How do you know that?" "Your texts, the ones you sent, the ones you deleted." "But I found in the trash. You're pregnant? Is that why you've been acting so weird?" She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, I found out last month. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't keep hiding it. I love you, but I was confused." That was the final straw. I felt my stomach churn and my mind went cold. All the pieces clicked into place. Her lies, her secrecy, the way she'd been avoiding me. It all made sense now. She'd been planning this, hiding it with him. I was sickened, but also strangely relieved. At least now I knew the full story. Still, the betrayal cut deep. I took a breath, trying to steady myself. "So the man you've been sleeping with is the father of your child?" She nodded again, sobbing. "Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't know what to do." I clenched my fists. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I'd never felt rage like this. It was like fire burning in my chest, heating everything up, ready to explode. But I stayed calm, at least outwardly. Inside, I was plotting my next move. I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to think carefully about how to handle this. "Look," I said, voice steady but cold, "we're going to talk about this, but not tonight. I need some time to think. Just think about what you've done and what it means." I paused, sharp-edged. "And I want you out of my house tomorrow." Her face crumpled. "Please don't do this. I love you." "No," I cut her off. "You lost that privilege a long time ago. I'll be packing my things this weekend. Please don't contact me until then. I need to process this mess." She left the room silently, tears streaming, and I sat on the couch, feeling the weight of everything. My stomach was tight. My hands were still trembling. I'd uncovered her lies, and now I had to figure out exactly what kind of revenge I wanted. Because this wasn't just about losing her. It was about making her feel every ounce of betrayal she'd poured into me. And I wasn't going down without a fight. The next few days were a blur. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the gnawing ache in my chest. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, those tears, that guilt. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been played, used, and discarded. The plan started forming in my mind, shaping itself like a dark blueprint I couldn't ignore. I knew I had to do something that would hit her where it hurt, but I also wanted to do it smartly. Revenge wasn't about violence. It was about making her realize she'd lost her grip on me, her dignity, her respect. One thing I'd learned from years of working in IT and dealing with people: revenge was best served cold, calculated. I spent nights poring over her social media profiles, gathering intel. I wanted details: her routines, her contacts, her habits. I knew her phone password, and I started tapping into her messages. It wasn't about spying on her just for fun. This was about setting the stage, making her feel the fallout of her betrayal on a whole new level. Then I found what I was looking for: a perfect piece of leverage. She'd been talking to her boss, yes, but also to other people, coworkers, friends, even some acquaintances from her office. I uncovered a series of emails, calendar invites, and private messages. Nothing explicit, but enough to show she'd been planning her affair, hiding it under the guise of work trips and business dinners. That's when I knew I had to take it further. I wanted her to know I wasn't just hurt. I was angry, and I was ready to make her regret everything. I decided I'd create a situation that would make her entire world feel unstable. I started by planting false evidence, fake emails, a few cleverly crafted messages, and even a fabricated social media post hinting at her supposed secret life. I knew she checked her phone constantly, so I made sure these would pop up at the right moments. I wanted her to believe I had more than I actually did, just enough to make her panic. It was about psychological warfare, making her feel hunted. My plan was to confront her with irrefutable proof, but I also wanted her to see that I'd been one step ahead all along. I kept the details vague enough to provoke suspicion but specific enough to seem real. I even altered some of her phone contacts, replacing her boss's number with a new one I set up. I wanted her to think I was capable of worse, like knowing every move she made, every lie she told. Finally, I arranged a meeting with her. I told her I wanted to talk, that I'd been thinking about everything and needed some clarity. She was hesitant, but I could see the fear creeping into her eyes. She knew I was closing in. When she arrived at the coffee shop, I was already waiting, my hands cold but my voice steady. "Look," I said, leaning forward, "I've seen enough. I know everything about her, about the affair, about the pregnancy. And I want you to understand something. This isn't just about catching you cheating. It's about respect, about honesty. You lied to me for over a year, and now I've got the proof." Her face turned pale again, her lips trembling. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I cut her off. "You're pregnant with his baby. That's what this has all been about, right? You wanted to keep him, keep the money, keep the life you're planning. Well, I've got news for you. I'm not going to let you walk away with everything, not without consequences." She looked like she'd been punched in the gut. "Please," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Don't do this." "Oh, I will," I said, voice hardening. "But not yet. For now, I just want you to see what's coming. I've set everything up. The emails, the social media post. She's going to find out soon enough that her perfect little world is crumbling. And when she does, I want her to remember who she lied to me, her family, everyone." I pulled out my phone and showed her the fake social media message I created, a post about her secret life, her affair, her pregnancy, all laid out in a way that would be impossible to dispute. "You wanted to keep the truth hidden, but I've made sure it's out there now. You can't deny it." She stared at the screen, eyes wide with terror. "You're dangerous," she whispered. "Maybe," I said, "but I'm also done. You're finished here. You'll be out of the house by the end of the week, and don't bother trying to contact me. I'll be making sure you regret ever crossing me." As she got up to leave, I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. I'd finally put the pieces together, executed my plan, and watched her crumble. But deep down, I knew the pain of betrayal wouldn't just disappear. It would haunt me, but it also gave me clarity. This was the beginning of the end of her lies and my revenge. If you want me to keep going, just say next part. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I watched her from a distance, seeing her panic, her frantic calls to friends, trying to deny everything. I kept my distance, letting her stew in her own chaos. That fake social media post I put out started doing its job, spreading like wildfire. Soon, mutual friends, colleagues, even distant acquaintances started dropping hints, asking pointed questions. It was all about making her realize her carefully constructed lie was crumbling fast. I stayed quiet, watching her unravel, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. But I also knew this wasn't enough. Revenge, I realized, had to be more than just exposing her. It had to make her feel the loss of everything she thought she had. I wanted her to see that her actions had consequences, that her lies had destroyed her own life as she knew it. One evening, I arranged a meeting with her boss. I knew his schedule, his habits. I found the right moment when he was most vulnerable and sent a simple, cryptic message: "We need to talk." When he called back, I made sure to sound calm, professional, but with an edge of menace. "Listen," I said, "you've been playing a dangerous game. I know everything about you and my wife. I've got proof, evidence that would ruin your career if it got out, and I'm willing to use it unless you start thinking about the consequences." He hesitated. "What are you talking about? I didn't do anything." "Oh, I think you did," I cut him off. "You've been sleeping with my wife and getting her pregnant. She's lying, but I have the messages, the emails. You're not just some guy she flirted with at work. You're a damn cheater just like her. And I want to know, what the hell is your plan now?" Because I can make everything disappear, or I can make sure everyone knows about your little affair." He was silent for a moment, then finally muttered, "This isn't how I wanted things to go." "No, it's not," I said, voice low but firm. "But I'm not playing the nice guy anymore. You'll end whatever you're doing with her and stay away from her, or I'll make sure your career ends up in ruins. Do you understand?" He agreed reluctantly. Good. That was step one. I knew he'd back off, at least for now. I felt a cold satisfaction knowing I'd taken control, that I'd cut off her lifeline. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The final piece of my plan was to have her see the full scope of her downfall. I contacted a lawyer, someone I knew, someone discreet, and asked about the best way to handle the divorce and custody. I wanted her to realize I was serious about walking away, not just emotionally, but legally. I'd made up my mind. I'd take everything she thought she could keep, and I'd do it in the most humiliating way possible. That night I left a note on her pillow. "We're done. You've lost me and you've lost everything. Don't try to contact me. I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow." I sealed the envelope, feeling a strange detachment, like I was watching myself from outside my own body. By morning, I was at the lawyer's office, prepared to move forward. When I handed over the paperwork, I felt a weight lift. This meant I was serious. I was severing all ties, not just emotionally, but practically. She'd see that I meant business. I returned home to find her sitting on the couch, her face red and swollen from crying. She looked broken, defeated. I never thought I'd feel this way, so cold and unyielding, but I knew I had to cut the cord for good. No more lies, no more pretending. "I'm leaving today," I told her. "I want the keys, the house, everything. And I want you to understand I've already started over. You're not going to ruin me." She looked at me, eyes pleading. "Please, don't do this." "We can fix it." "No," I interrupted. "There's nothing left to fix. You made your choice and now I'm making mine. Goodbye." I walked out that afternoon, keys in hand, knowing I'd finally taken the control back. The betrayal still stung, but I felt stronger. I'd stripped her of her lies, her illusion of control. And I knew one thing: my life was about to start over without her. And that was the best revenge I could have asked for. If you want me to continue, just say next part. The house felt strange without her there. The silence was deafening, like the walls were echoing with everything that had just happened. I'd never felt so numb, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I'd done what I set out to do: expose her, turn her world upside down, and walk away with my dignity intact. Still, I couldn't ignore the gnawing emptiness in my stomach, the weight of betrayal that would probably stay with me for a long time. That night, I sat in my new apartment, staring at the blank walls, trying to process everything. My mind kept circling back to her face when I told her I was leaving, the tears, the pleading. I didn't feel anger anymore, just cold resolve. I knew I'd won the battle, but I wondered if I'd lost something too. Trust, maybe, or the idea of a future I'd once thought was secure. The next morning, I woke up feeling a bit clearer. I knew I had to look ahead, figure out what was next, beyond the anger, beyond the revenge. I started making plans, new routines, new places to go, new people to meet. I wanted to rebuild, but I also needed closure. I reached out to a counselor, someone I'd trusted before, someone who could help me process the fallout of everything I'd just been through. I told her everything, from the first discovery to the final move. During that session, I realized I was still carrying a lot of pain. I'd been betrayed so thoroughly I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to trust someone. The counselor said something that stuck with me. "You're grieving the loss of what you thought your relationship was. It's okay to feel angry, hurt, or even numb. But the important thing is to reclaim your story. Make it about your healing, not just revenge." That became my new mantra: reclaim my story. I decided I'd focus on myself for a while, on healing, on rediscovering what I wanted. I'd cut ties with her completely, no contact, no looking back. I changed my phone number, blocked her on all platforms, and made it clear to my friends that I needed space. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, not just now, but in every part of her life. If she really thought she could walk away and everything would be normal, she was dead wrong. Over the next few weeks, I slowly started picking up the pieces. I got a new job, reconnected with old friends, and even started dating again. Nothing serious, just little steps to remind myself I was still alive. But I kept the bitter taste of betrayal tucked away like a scar I'd carry forever. It reminded me to be cautious, to never trust blindly again. One day I received a text from an unknown number. It was a simple message. "You won." That was it. No name, no explanation, just those two words. I stared at it, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. I'd wanted to punish her, to make her feel the pain she'd inflicted. But now that it was over, I realized revenge was like a poison. It might numb the pain temporarily, but it doesn't heal the wound. I put the phone down and took a deep breath. I knew I had to move forward. I couldn't let her define my life anymore. I'd already started rebuilding, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. The betrayal had opened my eyes to the fact that I deserved better, that I had to trust myself first and foremost. So I made a promise to myself. I'd learn from this, grow stronger, and never let someone deceive me like that again. Because no matter how badly you get hurt, life still goes on. And someday, I'll find someone who's worth my trust and who won't betray me. That's my truth now. If you want me to wrap this up with the final part, just say, "Next part." The months that followed were a blur of trying to piece my life back together. I threw myself into work, into hobbies I'd neglected, and into simply rediscovering who I was outside of that toxic relationship. Every day was a small victory, getting up, going out, not checking her social media, not wondering if she was thinking about me. But underneath it all, I carried that scar of betrayal. It's a wound that doesn't quite heal, just fades enough to keep moving forward. Looking back, I realize how much I learned from this whole nightmare. Trust is fragile, and I was naive to think it could never be broken. But I also learned something else, my own resilience. Even after the deepest hurt, I managed to claw my way out, rebuild my life, and take control again. The revenge, it served its purpose, but in the end, it was only a tool to wake me up. The real victory was reclaiming my dignity and choosing to walk away without becoming bitter or consumed by hatred. One day, I was sitting outside a coffee shop, sipping a bitter black brew, when I saw her walk past. She looked different, haggard, uncertain. I caught her eye for a second. Her expression flickered with regret, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of a reply. Instead, I nodded slightly and looked away. That was the last time I saw her face. I knew I'd done everything I could to make her feel the consequences, and I was ready to move on. Getting beyond her lies took time. I had to learn to trust myself again, trust that I could be happy without her. I started dating casually, but I didn't rush into anything serious. I knew I needed to heal first. I also learned to forgive, not for her sake, but for mine. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what happened. It means releasing the grip of anger and hurt so I could breathe easier. One evening, I sat in my new apartment, looking around at the life I'd built. It was simple, but it was mine. I finally felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in a long time. I thought about everything, the lies, the betrayal, the revenge. It all seemed like a nightmare I'd survived. Now I was the one in control. That realization warmed me more than I expected. I know now that betrayal can teach you many things about your limits, your strength, and your capacity to start over. It's painful, yes, but it's also a lesson in resilience. I've become more cautious, more aware of the people I trust. But I haven't become bitter. I refuse to let her actions define my future. And as I sit here, typing this out, I realize one thing. I don't regret what I did. Not the revenge, not the confrontation. Not the pain, because it opened my eyes. It forced me to wake up and reclaim my life. And that's what truly matters. I'm healthier, wiser, and finally free from the shadow of her lies. So to anyone out there going through something similar, know that you're stronger than you think. Take your time, trust yourself, and don't be afraid to start over. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well without someone who doesn't deserve your trust. And in the end, that's what I choose to do. That's my story. Thanks for listening.